Get a divorce right now. When your daughter was examined, it turns out that Ryan said something shocking after prefacing it as a piece of advice from a friend. I couldn't hide my agitation at his words. What? What do you mean? Ryan is a pediatrician. This is the hospital where he works, but the room we're in isn't an examination room, it's just a private room. Probably a place where they store unused equipment or something. After bringing me to this cluttered room, he recommended I get a divorce. Not only that, but he also shared some astonishing facts about my daughter, Kate. Listening in disbelief, Ryan seemed to brace himself, his expression turning serious. From here on, it might be unpleasant for you, but I need you to stay calm and listen. A few days later, I submitted the divorce papers to the court as he had advised. During that time, I had a confrontation with my husband, which hastened our move. It was perhaps a cleansing for a new beginning. My name is Martha. I live with my husband, Steve, and our daughter, Kate. The truth is, Kate and I are not biologically related. She is the child from Steve's previous marriage. When I was 29 and Steve was 33, we met through a mutual friend. We hit it off due to our shared interests in movies and food, leading to our marriage. People around me warned that marrying someone with a child would be tough, but I had resolved to accept it. Due to a gynecological condition, I can't have children of my own. Having a child was something I thought was just a dream, but Kate, a sweet little girl, became my daughter. That made me incredibly happy. When we got married, Kate was only 3 years old and had little memory of her birth mother. Her biological mother had passed away due to complications after childbirth. Kate thought of me as her real mother and became attached to me. Feeling happy with Kate, I also felt sorry for her birth mother, so we visited her grave every year. Kate always says, "I'm so lucky to have 2 moms." Kate. She is kind and a very good girl. I was determined to make her happy and held her small hand tightly. This year marked the 5th visit to the grave. Kate is now 8 years old. As usual, we prayed together. Hey! Hurry up! From a distance, Steve called out to us. Despite it being a visit to his former wife's grave, he was eager to leave quickly, which had started to feel a bit cold to me over the past few years. If I didn't initiate, he wouldn't even suggest visiting the grave, and I began to feel a slight discomfort. I wondered if it was because he's a man and naturally more detached, but even so, wasn't he a bit too cold? Though he remained kind to me, the gap in his behavior was becoming more noticeable. After marrying, I realized that he seemed to neglect his child. Working as a researcher at a pharmaceutical company, he was busy. It seemed he had left all child rearing to his previous wife, so he didn't understand Kate very well. Even when we got married, we had exchanges like this. Where is Kate's birth and immunization records? Birth and immunization records? Where did I put it? Do we really need that? Of course we do. It has important information about her birth, vaccinations, crucial stuff. Steve showed no awareness of being a parent. I searched high and low for the records and finally found it, only to discover that more than half of the vaccinations that should have been done by age 3 were missing. I hurriedly took Kate to get her shots. Indeed, it's not mandatory to get all the vaccinations, but in Steve's case, he simply forgot because he was too wrapped up in his work. It's unbelievable that he works for a pharmaceutical company and yet is so oblivious to these things. Realizing I couldn't rely on him for Kate's care, I took the lead and looked after her. Taking care of sweet Kate was not a burden for me, it made me happy. However, my heart ached when I realized that young Kate wasn't feeling any love from her father. Does Daddy not like me? That's not true, Kate. Daddy is just busy with work. He cares about you very much. Yeah, I guess. Thanks, Mommy. Sweet Kate. Just hearing her call me Mommy made me very happy. But when Kate turned 10, there was a slight change in Steve. He offered to help with dinner. For me, who had just started working part-time again, this proposal was very welcome. Perhaps he finally realized he needed to do something as a father and husband. Although it seemed a bit late, I decided to accept his offer. Thank you, Steve. Can I leave it to you on your days off? Of course. I'll show off my amazing skills. I'm looking forward to it. Steve, who had lived alone before we got married, indeed cooked very well. My burden lightened considerably, and my mistrust towards him eased. I felt reassured that he cared about the family too. However, even though we spent more time together at the dinner table, Kate's demeanor started to change. Usually, everything was fine, but sometimes she would become irritable and take it out on me. At first, I didn't understand why. Consulting with her school teachers, they said there was nothing unusual and that she was having fun with her friends. She didn't seem to have any complaints about her extracurricular activities or tutoring either. But after observing her for a while, I understood. Kate occasionally suffered from health issues. This caused her to become irritable. Sometimes she would have an upset stomach and lock herself in the bathroom, or she couldn't wake up in the morning, or the opposite, she couldn't sleep at night because she was too alert. These issues happened about once every 3 months, and I thought it might be good to have some health tests done, so I consulted with Steve. But it's not the same health issue each time, right? Could it just be a bad day? Well, yes, but... And if it gets better quickly, it's not a disease. She's fine. Martha, you're such a worrier. Steve didn't seem to take it seriously, and I started to think I might be overreacting. Indeed, it wasn't a constant problem, and the symptoms were varied. Even when we went to the hospital, they just attributed it to stress and prescribed some medicine. But... I'm going to bed now. Huh? It's only 7 p.m. I'm really sleepy. Good night. Rubbing her eyes, Kate headed to her room without even taking a bath. Washing the dishes, Steve responded nonchalantly, "Oh, going to bed early is good. Good night." Didn't he find it strange that she was going to bed 2 hours earlier than usual? I thought it might be useless to consult him, so the next day, I decided to take Kate to a different hospital. I entered the examination room with Kate walking sluggishly. To my surprise, there was an unexpected person there. Huh? Ryan? Oh, I see. You changed your name when you got married. It's been a while. Now it's Smith. Ryan squinted at the medical chart. He went to the same high school as I did and now works as a pediatrician at this hospital. I never imagined I'd meet him here. Ryan, who was kind and popular in our class, had not changed. Feeling reassured by his gentle demeanor, I reported Kate's recent symptoms. There's nothing unusual about her body, but if you'd like, we can run some tests. Yes, please. At those words, Kate, who was sitting next to me, made a face and said, "Tests? Don't be difficult. These tests are important to check your health." Okay. Good girl, very cooperative. Although she was about to turn 11, she was still a child. Kate smiled innocently at my words, showing her childlike expression. Ryan also smiled at our interaction. You two look alike when you're like this. Huh? You really look like mother and daughter. At those words, Kate and I looked at each other and blushed. Even without a blood relation, maybe we started to look alike as a family living together. It was a warm feeling. Both Kate and I felt glad we came to this hospital today. The tests were done, and we were to return later to hear the results. Before we left, Ryan kindly said, "If you have any more symptoms that concern you, please come back." However, the test results showed no abnormalities. Even after that, whenever Kate had health issues, we went to this hospital. Each time, Ryan conducted tests, but the cause always remained unknown. Steve reacted with a stern expression. Getting sick every few months, that's normal for kids. Doing tests every time, don't you think the hospital is just ripping us off? But if something happened to Kate, it would be a big deal. Really? You're just an easy mark for these doctors. It was frustrating to hear Steve insult Ryan instead of being concerned, but I held back for Kate's sake. The sight of parents arguing is the worst thing for a child. The days continued with occasional unexplained illnesses. Kate had turned 12 without any findings in the past year, and I started to think it was just common health issues during growth. One day, as usual, we went to the hospital to hear the test results. While waiting in the reception area, Ryan came to me and spoke. He asked me to follow him, and we entered a private room that seemed to be used for storage. We've done a total of 5 tests over the past year. Yes, did you find something in this latest test? Calm down, Ms. Smith. Ryan faced my agitation with an unusually stern expression. With a serious face, he began to speak. I think I know you well. You're honest, a bit bad at lying, and kind. Why are you saying this all of a sudden, Ryan? Ms. Smith. No, Martha. This is advice from a friend. He said something outrageous. Get a divorce from your husband right now. When your daughter was tested, it turns out, something terrible was found out. What do you mean? I was shocked by the word divorce, but what followed about Kate heightened my anxiety. Ryan, still serious, continued. If you don't separate Kate from him immediately, something irreparable might happen. That's why you need to divorce or separate and isolate her from him. Irreparable? What could he mean by that? Ryan quickly explained. Remember the first day you came in and we ran tests? Actually, we found traces of a sleeping pill in her system then. What? Sleeping pills? Has Kate ever taken sleeping pills or sedatives? I shook my head at his question. After thinking for a moment, Ryan spoke again. This might be hard for you to hear, but please stay calm and listen. According to Ryan, traces of various drugs were found in Kate's system each time she was tested. Laxatives, headache medicine, sleeping pills. It was highly likely that these were over-the-counter drugs given by a family member, but the questionnaire indicated no medication had been administered. Based on my accounts, I brought her in due to sudden illnesses, with no prior medication reported. Moreover, diarrhea with traces of laxatives, lethargy with traces of sleeping pills, clearly, her illnesses were caused by these drugs. It was suspected that Kate was being given drugs by one of her parents, causing her health issues. Of course, I was also under suspicion. However, to continue testing without alerting me, the detection of drug components was kept secret from me. And now, in the 5th test, it was confirmed that Kate was being regularly drugged. Ryan took personal action based on these results. It was risky for a doctor, but it showed how much he trusted me. Your husband works for a pharmaceutical company, right? How do you know that? I checked the health insurance card. Miller Pharmaceuticals, this company has had a bad reputation with the medical association for some time. I had a bad feeling. No way. I felt my blood run cold. Are you saying my husband is giving something to Kate? I can't rule out that possibility. Kate often comes in on Mondays or after holidays. Is there anything different about those days? Something different. Then, it hit me. On holidays, Steve always cooks dinner. In our open-plan kitchen, it's hard to see what he's doing from the living room, so he could be doing something without me noticing. Ryan's words became more believable, and my suspicion of Steve grew. Could it really be, even though he's her biological father? But considering his attitude at his ex-wife's grave and his recent indifference to Kate, I couldn't say it was impossible. Balancing my trust in Steve and my desire to protect Kate, the choice was clear. I wanted to protect Kate. Determined, I looked Ryan straight in the eye. This issue couldn't be ignored. Later, I promptly ordered a child monitoring camera online. I decided to use it to check Steve's activities in the kitchen. To avoid detection, I camouflaged it in a box. To be honest, a part of me hoped nothing would be captured. I didn't want to believe that Steve, Kate's biological father, would do something so terrible. But that hope was shattered a month later. One night, Kate had a sudden health issue. She had diarrhea and kept running to the bathroom. Sensing something was wrong, I checked the monitoring camera. What I saw was the worst. In the kitchen, Steve was preparing dinner as usual on a weekend. When we left the living room, he took something out of his pants pocket. It was a small bottle with a powdery substance. He put it into a dish, Kate's special soup bowl. Stirring the stew to dissolve the powder, his expression wasn't clear from the camera's angle. The thought that he could do such a thing filled me with anger. I couldn't believe he was making our daughter ingest something harmful. I saved the video and then headed to the freezer. Whenever Steve cooked, we saved Kate's leftovers in the freezer. The remaining stew in a frozen pack contained the same powder shown in the video. I pushed it further into the freezer, ensuring Steve wouldn't find it. This was Ryan's advice. He mentioned that video evidence alone would be circumstantial, we needed physical evidence too. Suppressing my growing anger, I prepared water for Kate as she came out of the bathroom. "Are you okay, Kate?"
Yeah.
"This has happened before. Maybe I have a weak stomach. Maybe. I'm not sure." Kate looked miserable, sipping water in exhaustion. I didn't want to hurt her more by letting her think it was her own body's fault. I vowed to protect her from anything that could harm her, even if it was her biological father. I gathered all the evidence and decided to confront Steve. On a Saturday, when Kate was scheduled to play with friends, I called out to Steve as soon as she left. "What? You said you wanted to talk about something important. Before that." I sat on the couch, looking at him with his usual expression. "Is there anything you're hiding from me? Not just from me, but from Kate too? Hiding something? What are you talking about?" For a moment, Steve's eyes darted nervously. "Not missing that," I said. "I want you to watch this," and pulled out my phone. I had transferred the camera footage to my phone. The video showed the moment Steve added the powder. Seeing his surprise, I spoke in a strong tone. "What is this? What are you making Kate ingest? Don't be ridiculous. It's a misunderstanding. It's just a supplement. Look, it's a sample from my workplace." I had anticipated such an excuse. But for him to lie so smoothly. It was clear he had thought of a cover story if he ever got caught. I clenched my teeth. "There's no use lying. I froze the meal from that day and had it tested." "Frozen? Martha, what are you?" "Laxative components were found." "Are you giving our child laxatives as a supplement?" "That." Steve's eyes darted around in confusion. As he tried to lie, my anger flared, and I pressed on without mercy. "There's no point in making excuses. The truth is, every test at the hospital has found something." "What? You said nothing showed up in the tests." "That's why I." "So, you continued mixing drugs?" My loud voice made Steve fall silent. His silence was as good as an admission. I hadn't been lying when I said the tests showed nothing. For that, I could thank Ryan. His advice allowed me, who was bad at lying, to confront Steve boldly. I asked Steve the question I most wanted answered. Why are you doing this? What do you gain from it?" Realizing he couldn't lie his way out, Steve exhaled deeply and said something unbelievable. "Martha, you're overreacting. I was just experimenting a little with our daughter." "What?"
Yeah.
"Experimenting. The stuff I gave Kate is an experimental prototype from my company. It's like a clinical trial." I couldn't understand what he was saying. He didn't even seem to think he was doing something wrong. My face turned pale. "You made Kate ingest that stuff. Calling it that stuff is rude. It's a new drug packed with our company's latest technology. Giving it to her is actually a good thing." "A good thing?" I slammed my hand on the table. "Making her have diarrhea with laxatives when she's not constipated, disrupting her sleep with sleeping pills, that's a good thing." "Calm down. This is necessary human experimentation." "Human experimentation?" Steve's nonchalant laughter made me feel a chill. Maybe I was dealing with someone truly monstrous. A feeling of fear began to form. But I steeled myself. If I gave in, Kate would be in danger. "Experimentation? You just said you experimented on our daughter." "That's right. It's hard to determine effective dosages with animals alone. Recruiting volunteers for clinical trials costs money and time. But with my own daughter, I can monitor her regularly without any hassle or expense. It's an easy and cheap method, right? My body trembled. Not with fear, but with rage. To think he had made Kate suffer for such a reason.
Don't be ridiculous. You're not a parent, let alone a human being.
That's too much, Martha. The Steve in front of me didn't seem human anymore. He reached out to me with a sickly sweet voice. I love you. That's why I never gave you any of it. Because you knew it was dangerous, you didn't give it to me? Then why give it to Kate? Because Kate is my daughter. Isn't it normal for a daughter to cooperate in experiments? Treating his own child like a possession. This man was no father, not even human. Talking any further was pointless. I handed Steve the documents I had been hiding. This is pointless. Let's get a divorce.
Divorce?
Of course, I'll be taking Kate. With all this physical evidence, it's going to be hard for you to get custody. Besides, you've just provided solid testimony. I showed him the voice recorder I had hidden along with the divorce papers. Pressing the play button, Steve's vile statements filled the room again. Stopping it quickly, not wanting to hear more than necessary, I saw a change in his expression for the first time.
No! Not a divorce!
It's too late to object now. I looked at him with cold eyes. I've already prepared and will submit it soon.
But I love you, Martha.
I don't love you anymore. I said it firmly. There wasn't a shred of love left for Steve, who had only hurt Kate. For Kate, it would be tough from now on. But with the word human experimentation thrown in, there was no choice but to separate them.
No! Martha!
Stop crying. Watching Steve cry, I felt my emotions grow colder. Sure, he had loved me before and after our marriage. But his love was twisted. I couldn't accept such love. Once Steve accepted, I snatched the divorce papers away and left the house. I drove straight to the court. Even on a Saturday morning, they were open. Just as I was about to submit the papers.
I can't do it. Not a divorce.
Steve. He burst in just as I handed over the papers. He must have followed me in his car. Clearly mentally broken, he seemed oblivious to the stares of onlookers. Clinging to me, he put his hand on my shoulder.
Let's start over, please. I promise I'll never do anything like that again.
Stop it, Steve. I was mortified, surrounded by so many people. The staff at the office just watched from behind the counter. To them, this might be a common sight in family disputes. But when Steve tried to drag me forcefully, someone finally intervened. Kate! What are you doing here? It was my daughter, Kate, the central figure in this whole ordeal. She stepped between Steve and me, quickly coming to my side. I anticipated this, so I got here first. It's okay, I'm ready. Kate. I was deeply surprised by her sudden support. I had actually talked to Kate beforehand. I explained the test results from the hospital. The reasons for her recurring health issues. And everything Steve had done. Telling her the truth was heartbreaking, but as the actual victim, she had the right to know. When Kate learned everything, she was shocked but also seemed to understand. So that's why my health was always off on the days Dad cooked. Kate! Did you know?
Yeah.
I'm not a little kid anymore. It's incredible how children grow up so quickly. I realized she'd be in middle school next year. My daughter had grown up so much. Feeling a bit emotional, I told Kate that I was planning to talk to Steve soon. I mentioned that divorce might be a possibility. But I hadn't told her that today was the day. Smart as she is, Kate must have figured it out. Maybe her plans with friends were just an excuse. She must have left the house earlier and staked out the court. Kate! Convince your mom. Tell her not to do something stupid. Steve, still thinking Kate didn't know anything, said that. But Kate's sharp gaze made his shoulders twitch. Dad, I know everything. That's why I can't be with you anymore. Kate. A dad who makes his daughter take strange drugs is scary. The moment Kate said that loudly and clearly, the atmosphere in the office changed. Murmurs spread, and the looks from those around us grew harsher. Hey, did that girl just say she was given drugs? That dad? Isn't that dangerous? The voices of the people there reached Steve's ears, and he turned pale. And then, "Excuse me, can I have a word?" "Police!" A police officer who happened to be there approached us. He introduced himself as being from the Community Safety Division and grabbed Steve's arm as he tried to flee. "I've been concerned since earlier, and what your daughter just said is very troubling. I'm sorry, but I'll need you, your wife, and your daughter to come with me." Yes. Things were getting serious. But maybe this was a good turn of events. Steve, with the officer gripping his arm, turned pale. "I didn't do anything. We'll hear more at the station. Let's go." Okay. Faced with the stern officer, Steve couldn't resist. Walking beside him in silence, he was taken away in a police car different from ours, heading to the interrogation room. Kate and I spoke to another officer and submitted the evidence. The hospital was also contacted, and Ryan agreed to testify. It became increasingly difficult for Steve to talk his way out of this. In the end, Steve was arrested. The interrogation lasted several days. During that time, I submitted the divorce papers again. I easily gained custody of Kate, feeling relieved. Steve had committed acts that warranted such consequences. I also hastily arranged the move. While Steve was detained, I wanted to relocate to a place he didn't know. Fortunately, there was an available apartment within the school district where Kate attended, so I signed the lease. However, staying so close meant Steve might find us if he was released. That worry remained. If Steve ever came barging in again. But my fears were unfounded. Steve was not only not released, but he was also prosecuted. The cause was his company, Miller Pharmaceuticals. During Steve's interrogation, questions about drug management and experimental data led to uncovering widespread misconduct within the entire company. Poor management of pharmaceuticals, falsification of experimental data, and different manufacturing processes from what was reported to the government. All of these were extremely malicious, and what started as a family issue turned into something with national implications. Taking this matter seriously, the police moved the case from the Community Safety Division to the entire organization. Steve, who held an important position in the company, was deemed heavily responsible and was criminally charged. The scandal involving a major pharmaceutical company became a big deal and was sensationally covered on talk shows for a while. I could only watch in disbelief from the screen. Eventually, Steve was fined and sentenced to 2 years in prison. I was truly relieved to have divorced him. If Ryan hadn't advised me to get a divorce, my family would have suffered from the stigma of having a criminal relative. Sorry for Steve, but I wanted no part in it. I couldn't thank Ryan enough. But there was one problem. Household income had dropped sharply. As much as I hated to admit it, we had been getting by on Steve's high income. I filed for child support, but it was uncertain if and when payments would come. I looked for full-time work, but it wasn't easy to find a job right away. We were heading toward financial hardship. Just when I was feeling hopeless about the financial situation, an unexpected person contacted me. It was Steve's mother, my MIL. She lived alone in a distant place. She had always been distant and uninvolved, showing little interest even when I, the second wife, went to introduce myself. I didn't really know much about her. On the phone, she spoke calmly. "I'm sorry, Martha. I can't believe what my son did." No, it's not. Even though it was to protect Kate, I was the one who had driven Steve to this point. I was prepared to be blamed by his mother. But she didn't seem to have any intention of blaming me. "I should have opposed his second marriage. I only agreed because I thought having a mother would be good for Kate. But I've had enough of my son." Then she surprised me by offering a living gift for Kate. "Are you sure, Mill?" Yes, it's fine. I've saved up for my retirement, and I thought of leaving the rest to Steve, but now. With a hint of regret, she said that after Steve's arrest, he had been sending her letters frequently. At first, they seemed to be loving letters from a son to his mother from prison, but they were actually begging for money and job referrals. I was appalled that he would burden his parent even in old age. He'd probably waste it on something foolish. I'd rather give it to my granddaughter, Kate. Mill. I realized I had misunderstood her. Though she seemed uninterested, she had been concerned for us all along. Of course, I'll keep this a secret from Steve. I'll just laugh it off and say I spent it. Thank you so much. Mill. Even though she couldn't see me, I bowed my head repeatedly while holding the phone. Of course, I couldn't rely solely on this gift. I found a full-time job and started afresh. As for Steve, after being released, he tried to go to his mother, but she had already moved into a nursing home, and he couldn't find her. That was expected. I had arranged her admission. We also moved again when Kate started middle school. The commotion at the court was known to some in the neighborhood, so we took the opportunity to move far away. Kate agreed readily, knowing it was a new start. Now, Steve couldn't find either his parent or his wife and daughter. It's sad to think he has no family left, but it's his own fault for trying to experiment on his daughter. Those who don't cherish their family won't be cherished by them. That's all there is to it. Steve embodied that reality. Time passed, and Kate turned 18. She had grown into a young woman, taller than me. Today, she was leaving home. Kate was heading to college in New York, starting a new life alone. As I fussed over her at the door, giving last-minute advice, she smiled wryly. I'm fine, Mom. Take care of your own happiness too. You know. She leaned in close and whispered. I encouraged Ryan to ask you out. What? I trust him with you.
Bye.
Now. Laughing, Kate waved and left. Ryan had indeed been looking out for us since then. Occasionally, we had meals together, and he gave gifts to me and Kate. I was taken aback. That girl is so mature. No, she's 18 now. An adult. Her words, showing concern for me, made me happy. Kate, so kind and thoughtful. The memories with my beloved daughter were enough to make me happy. Feeling content, I looked up at the sky from the doorway. A clear blue sky stretched infinitely above.